I tell a lot of these guys that gives me an opportunity to get centered with what I feel and I believe. Because, Josh, why don't you move over there? Josh, move over there, because we're going to talk something many people this way. Jack, you want to sit here? This way? Oh, you okay. Jay. Okay, so it gives me an opportunity to really, be centered and clear. I find that life can be confusing, and the daily routine, can kind of sometimes.
Should I leave?
No, you got to sit right here.
No.
Come on, are you kidding me? Hello, hello.
Come on. I don't want to sit with
Sit
you.
in the back. Zero. What? It's on YouTube? Okay. Anyhow, so I find often that the daily life, can kind of throw me off in terms of really understanding, what's going on here, what are we doing? There's a lot of, I like to call it the challenger. People in Judaism, we call it the Yetzer Hara, evil inclination. Maybe cliches sometimes get overused, and we kind of lose an understanding of what it really means. What is this Yetzer Hara? What is this challenger that we talk about? So, I like the topic that we're talking about. It's about suffering, and do we live in a just world? And let's just start by throwing it out there. You guys, anybody want to? What do you think? Do we live in a just world?
It's hard to say what just is.
Just means, well, you know the definition of justice. Justice means people, let's put it in a slang, people get what's coming to them. That's a negative way to put it, but people get what's coming to them in a good way and a bad way, that somehow things can take care of themselves. Justice is served in the court of law.
It is an ideal, but I don't think we've ever lived in a just world.
Okay. Anybody have a different opinion? No, people think we don't live in a just world.
I think there's something called there's mental justice, which is just, I don't think things are done tit for tat. I think there's a justice that exists in all of us, and knowing that we're doing the right thing in this unjust world gives us justice. So I don't, and obviously that's not the depths of what I think, but from like a superficial standpoint and no, I don't believe it's
Okay, Michael, what do you think?
It's funny. So I think the moment you mention justice, you have to make a differentiation between divine justice and human justice.
yeah. That's
I think about divine justice.
Yeah, so I think that human justice is something that we're called upon to deal with. God never asks us to understand divine justice. That's for God alone to understand. So I do have faith, I really do believe that there is divine justice in this world. But it's not my job. My job is on a human level to notice injustice. That's what Judaism is, right? Like Rabbi Sachs says, it's faith as protest. It's supposed to irk you and stir you to the injustice in the world and to tell you, yes, the world is unjust. So on your human level, it should bother you. I think it's a midrash of the Hachamim that you're supposed to fix it. And I think there's a midrash that when Moshe Rabbeinu was first chosen to be an Avi, when he was at the burning bush, like we all know, it says that he turned his face away, and I think the midrash goes on to explain that if he would have looked, he would have seen things from God's perspective, Kivyachol, and he would have had no reason to fight for the Israelites. The only reason he wanted to fight for them is because he lived on a human level, and the text keeps saying, Vayad, Vayad, Vayad. He noticed the injustice. So, as Jews, we're supposed to notice that the world is unjust, and it's supposed to bother us.
Okay, beautiful. Jack, did you want to say anything? Jack, did you want to say anything?
So working off what Michael said, there's divine justice and there's human justice, and I think in Judaism also, it is humans' responsibility to mete out divine justice. So there's a Beit Din. The Beit Din has all these laws, as the Torah has the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the Gemara, and everything. And we're given the responsibility to make sure that justice is meted out in our society. So I don't think that our world is just, because there's obviously tons of corruption, there's tons of bribery, there's in every single city, every country, there's injustice being done on a daily basis. But I also think that since it's kind of like a partnership, I mean, God gave us He trusted us with carrying out these systems. I think that He gets involved also. So if there's something, if there is, for example, says in the Torah a lot that if the widow and the orphan screams out crying to me because there's injustice, I'm going to get involved and make sure there's justice.
Right. Okay, so a lot of beautiful, beautiful thoughts, and so 1,000%. I mean, there's injustice in the world, and as Jews, that's part of the reason we're here. Anybody want to take it onto Adam Harishon? Why he didn't listen to God? I mean, he knew God. God was right there, and he told them, "Don't eat from this tree." It wasn't like he was a little schoolboy Adam. He was Adam Harishon. They say he was. We should never know what he was before he fell. Anybody want to take a shot at why he ate from the tree? Anybody know? Okay, so my understanding, and this I've read from, and I think it's Chazal, and it's Rabbi Tatzkin, gets his but it's a beautiful thing, I think. It's the tree of good and evil, right? Good and doubt and knowledge. Now, before he ate from the tree, everything was clear. It was a clear world. He saw Adam was living, what everyone else was living. We could talk. There's a lot to talk about what was going on. And so we've only got an hour. But let's assume he was the first man, and he's living in a world, and everything's clear, everything's perfect, everything's just. Godliness is all around, and God gave him one. Let's assume gave him one thing to do. One thing. Don't eat from that tree. Now, what was Adam thinking? From what I heard and what I understood and what resonated with me, it was too easy. It was too easy for Adam. Adam, and we all know this. If you're going to play tennis, what's your sport? What's your challenge? You don't want to play against an amateur. You don't want to, if I'm skiing, I love to ski. I don't want to ski on a green. I got to ski with Josh because he skis on a green. I love doing that because I'm teaching him, but he got to apply himself ultimately. But everybody wants a challenge in life. Why? Because we want to fulfill our potential. We want to feel like we have a reason for being. We want to, that's really, and I'll try to quote some of these books, and none of this is me, by the way. This is all things that I've read, and again, that resonate with me. We all born with a mission. Really, really, really. Everybody here has a job to do. That's quite incredible. Has a job to do in fixing the world. Tikkun olam. We've heard this saying, Tikkun olam. Okay, but again, cliches, maybe, for those of you that it resonates with and we understand what Tikkun olam is, kol hakavod. I'm speaking to you as somebody who has trouble aligning these feelings and saying, hey guys, Tikkun olam, this is an amazing concept. We're here to fix the world, to be Hashem's partner. He didn't create, a perfect world that we just live in and enjoy and bask in the, in the light of Hashem and whatever you want to envision that to be. He created a world and it wasn't finished. It wasn't finished. He actually, so just to your point, yes, 1,000%. That's a job. And we can do it. Everybody can do it day to day, every second of the day. It's quite amazing. Quite amazing. Within your family, within the guy online, there's mitzvot all over the place. You walk in, what? Within yourself. Exactly. Beautiful. You have an emotion, you're feeling jealous, you're feeling resentful, you're feeling ungrateful, you're feeling unfaithful, you're being pessimistic, you're being depressed. Yeah, you can within oneself, when they take and they turn it around and they turn that negativity into gratefulness and optimism, right? And my wife is laughing right now because she knows I struggle with that. I do. I tend to not be such an optimistic person, and it's quite interesting. You think about. Well, I won't get to that now, but hopefully I'll get to it. Well, as long as we're talking about it, there's a great book. I don't know if any of you guys have read it. Anybody? Okay, so this book kind of called out to me and jumped out of the shelf. I was in Lakewood by my brother-in-law, and I was in shul. Oh, let me read that. I didn't end up reading it. I was by my brother-in-law. He's got a big library, and I pulled out one book. This was it. So I recommend it to anybody who likes to read. It's called As Long as I Live. It's a story of Aharon Margalit. His parents were Holocaust survivors, and he, at the age of 3, contracted polio. And a very severe case. He needed to be in an iron lung, couldn't breathe on his own for a period of 60 days. After that point, they told the mother, no shot, too far gone. He's not breathing. He's paralyzed. She went to a Rebbe. She was a woman of faith, and she wouldn't leave the Rebbe. It was a Gadol Ador, who I don't know exactly who it was. I'm not leaving here until you bless me, promise me that this kid is going to live and he's going to be fine. The Rabbi said, I can't do that. Blah, blah, blah. Long story short, okay, the story goes, he blessed him. Turns out he starts breathing, okay, after 60 days. But he's paralyzed, fully paralyzed, okay? 5 years he spends in a institution for polio. They're in Israel. The parents are 9 hours away. They barely can scrub up the money to go take a bus back and forth. So he'd be visited very infrequently. Imagine they're lying paralyzed in a bed with you're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. And everybody, he tells the story, it's heart-wrenching, how everybody else would be with their family, and they would make fun of him, nobody cares about you, and he would cry in his bed. This is the pain that the guy was going through. And then, the story goes on and on and on. He's mute because he can't speak, because he's paralyzed. It's a very pain. He deals with cancer later on in his life. A point, again, 99%, you're not going to live, they tell him. But he was blessed with, somehow, this guy was blessed with so much faith. And I'm going to read you just a section of the book. And he talks about what his mission in life was. Finally it hits him. And this isn't a guy, this is not like, all right, let me read this, and then I'll understand this is deep. This is a guy really coming to a realization of what his purpose in life is. After suffering, through all this suffering, suddenly a new insight flooded my awareness, a realization that had begun to dawn on me some weeks earlier was now crystallized. This is my life's mission. The new understanding burned within me. How could I have failed to grasp it? For this very mission, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had prepared me all my life. The training period was long, since before I was 3 years old, and to this day, and fraught with periods of intense suffering, with breaks for respite along the way. It has all been a carefully planned, tailor-made, goal-oriented program from beginning to end. I trembled from the power and raw truth of this revelation. All my suffering and pain, my disabilities and difficulties, have been for the purpose of preparing me for this holy undertaking, to infuse hope in those suffering souls who had lost it along the way. He had been in a hospital. There was this kid that was, and he realized he has this talent for going into the sick and Kropolim and uplifting souls. He goes on to talk later on. I mean, it just brings chills up his spine when he had an experience. Anyhow, long story short is, and it's here what we're here to talk about today. I don't know how much time we have. There's so much to talk about.
There's a quote from Viktor Frankl that says that, I don't know when this quote, actually somebody else gave a class on it. It said, fantastic. Yeah.
Tell him who he was.
This was Viktor Frankl, is a Holocaust survivor, actually, who found meaning through many different logotherapy, exactly, so you know about him. He says, what is to give light must endure burning, meaning that in order to really, in the end, give meaning to other people's lives or really help others, you have to go through a period of tough times yourself. So that's really a way for anybody here to get through tough times.
Yeah. Okay, so let's, we have about 30 minutes, and I want to leave time for discussion at the end, so I'm going to try to do this kind of quickly, and I don't know, it's a lot, but I hope we can get to it. So, Josh was 8 years old. We had Hurricane Sandy in we had Hurricane Sandy in Manhattan Beach. And Josh is a very introspective young man, and he said to me, it was late at night, I remember, he said, why did Hashem allow this? It was, all the got flooded, and this devastation. He had to go out in the middle of actually he had to walk out his door and swim across the way to the neighbor. It was 10 feet high. It was pretty traumatic he was scared. There was a lot going on, and the dog got lost. Blah, blah, blah. Late at night, I was tired. It's a big question, right? Okay. So the next day, I went to work, and I said, well, I'm not going to let that go by. I'm going to, my son's 8 years old. I'm going to figure something out to answer him so he hasn't answered this question. So I went to M&J Trimmings, and I bought a bunch of tools, right? I bought some coral beads. I bought some gold beads. I bought a pearl. I bought this ugly black-looking pearl. I bought some voodoo dolls, a short one and a long one. And I went back that night and I told Josh, okay, Josh, here we go. It's called the game of life. And basically, I want to go through the rules. There's rules, there's objectives, and there's how to play the game. And it kind of, at the age of 8, he got it. I finished, and he got it. And then, to be honest, I don't know that we talk about this enough, because it deals with some issues that are very hard to grasp for a lot of people. It deals with Olam Haba, which I think is something that for many, many people, and I don't know, I don't want to take a poll here, but it's not a reality. Olam Haba is something we talk about, oh, Olam is in a better place, and da-da-da. I don't feel that it's enough of a reality, and it is supposed to be. I mean, we know that clearly in Judaism. Rabbi Miller, Avigdor Miller. Anybody raise hands if anybody knows Rabbi Avigdor Miller? Okay, beautiful. So he was Gadol Hador in our generation. He lectured in Brooklyn. He wrote 20 books. He's got 2,500 of his lectures on tape. He was gifted with an oratory skill and with knowledge. Okay, so he had the 10 steps to greatness. Rabbi Miller. Number 1, spend 30 seconds a day thinking about Olam Haba, because this world is only a preparation for the next. Okay, so what are we talking about? No, that doesn't mean that we don't enjoy life. That doesn't mean that we don't, work for this world. It doesn't mean that we do things so that we get points in Olam Haba. None of that. But it does give a perspective, and it is, to me, at least from my perspective, and not me, Judaism, we talk about it all day long. We say it in our prayers. We say it. It's all over. It's not written blankly in our Torah. Anybody know why? Michael knows why.
Because it's not about Olam Haba.
Well, it's not. It shouldn't be exactly. So we shouldn't be doing anything for that reason. That's not true giving. That's not true chesed. That's not, our goal. It's interesting because I came upon this thing because I was talking to Michael, and I think life is kind of like a game of God playing hide and go seek with Himself. Now, what does that mean? There's nothing.
It's like the Rambam says, you have to start someone off with tell kids about Olam Haba. The master gives his student candy first, and then he gives them money, then he gives them nice clothing, and eventually it'll lead him up to a point where he'll learn for the sake of learning. And it's similar to telling a kid, oh, there's an Olam Haba, and it's something that he has to go through his whole life, but eventually he'll do chesed for the sake of doing chesed, and like you said, making this world more just.
100%. That's why truly, but yes, we have to train. It's 100% because the truth is that God is. And I don't want to get too deep, but Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. What does that mean? That means yes, there's only one God. Fine, but the real meaning is that there's only one. It's a very hard concept. There's only God. I mean, imagine God was God before there was anything. There was just God. They actually say Tzimtzum. Tzimtzum. What is Tzimtzum? God had to pull Himself out of this world to create reality. If there was only God, there would just be oneness. We're just a part of. Is it safe to say we're like a part of? In a way, we're a part of God. There's only God. There's only God. Everything is God. So the point is that to be aligning ourselves, and you made this challenger, right? This is the game. The challenger's here, and the game is it's almost like the brain. If you guys know anything about the brain, the big function of the brain is to weed out a lot of the stimuli out there, so that if we were able to perceive everything that was going on, we couldn't think, we couldn't function. In a way, our purpose here with the soul game is the same, to try and find the godliness within us. Now, what is the godliness within us? It's just pure giving, pure love, pure wanting to do good. Why does it feel so good? It's selfish. It's that BB Friends show. I can't do good. It just feels right. It feels good. Why? That's godly. That's what we are. So here's a point. So we're talking. Let's get to the rules because there's not that much time. So the first rule in this game is that we have to know there's a God. If we want to try to understand suffering and injustice, and is there justice in this world, and does everything work out in the end, the first thing is there a God? Because if you don't believe there's a God, then no, there is no justice. Absolutely not. We live in a random world that was created by random mutations and haphazard, and bad things happen to good people. Then we die, and it's the end, and we bury them, and that's the end of the story. So, okay, there's that. So the first premise is that we believe in God. And I want to just play. This morning I was fooling around. I think the best way to know that there's a God, personally, other than experience Him on your own, in terms of praying, if anybody's been touched to the point where they feel Hashem within their heart, then they know that gift of being, some people are born with that gift. And if you're not, then we need to work to, that's what it's all about. How do we get to there? And then anybody who's, I've been talking to a lot of these guys, by the way, you're welcome to come Monday nights, Wednesday nights, we sit and we talk, and there's a lot more interaction than here. There's, prayer is a phenomenal way to get connected to Hashem, to feel, and let's not read other people's words. We have a siddur, let's understand. If you don't understand it, close your mind, talk to Hashem. You'll feel a connection, and you can't get enough. You can't get enough of it. Mitzvot connect us to Hashem. They're all like a switchboard, okay? You can't understand every one of them. There's 630, some of them we can, there's talks, there's not, but those are also connections. But then there's the mind. God gave us this mind to think and to figure out and to understand. Now, so science, Rambam, what does Rambam say? That's the best way. For the one who doesn't have that natural inclination and doesn't have that feeling, just look at the world. And you know what? They didn't have what we had today. They couldn't see. I'm going to show you the inner workings of the cell. They had no clue. All they can do is see a seed that somehow gives you an apple. I mean, it's quite remarkable. And the leaves, okay, fine, you can figure that out. But now we have the ability to look into a cell and see
environment where what they learn is subjects that
What?
have truth and beauty embedded in them, but the way they're taught is compartmentalized, and it's drawn down to the point where the truth and beauty are not always evident. It's almost like
all right, whatever. So the guy, basically, he talks about, it's a great, you want to try and get it working, anybody? Good mechanically? What? Yeah, well, So this guy, he tells you, he'll tell you a story. Harvard University reached out to him to create an animated depiction of what a cell looks like, and I think it helps us all just to blow our minds, hopefully, to what's going on within a cell.
Chicken soup, where you boil the chicken until the flavor is just right. And we don't want to do that to our students. So we have an opportunity to really open up education. And I have
Whoever wants, come around. Who's Chris?
years ago. My team and I would be interested and willing to really change how medical and scientific education is done at Harvard. And so we embarked on a project that would explore the cell, that would explore the truth and beauty inherent in molecular and cellular biology, so that students could understand a larger picture, that they could hang all of these facts on, that they could have a mental image of the cell as a large, bustling, hugely complicated city that's occupied by micro-machines. And these micro-machines really are at the heart of life. These micro-machines, which are the envy of nanotechnologists the world over, are self-directed, powerful, precise, accurate devices that are made out of strings of amino acids. And these micro-machines power how a cell moves. They power how a cell replicates. They power our hearts. They power our minds. And so what we wanted to do was we wanted to figure out how we could make this story into an animation that would be the centerpiece of BioVisions at Harvard, which is a website that Harvard has for its molecular and cellular biology students that will, in addition to all the textual information, in addition to all the didactic stuff, put everything together visually so that these students would have an internalized view of what a cell really is in all of its truth and beauty, and be able to study with this view in mind so that their imaginations would be sparked, so that their passions would be sparked, and so that they would be able to go on and use these visions in their head to make new discoveries and to be able to find out really how life works. So we set out by looking at how these molecules are put together. We worked with a theme, which is you've got macrophages that are streaming down the capillary, and they're touching the surface of the capillary wall, and they're picking up information from cells that are on the capillary wall, and they are given this information that there's an inflammation somewhere outside where they can't see and sense, but they get information that causes them to stop, causes them to internalize that they need to make all the various parts that will cause them to change their shape and try to get out of these capillary and find out what's going on.
I think we got
A lot
the
that
point.
goes on in this.
I think we got the point. But I think it's important to visualize. I mean, to me, when I saw that machine, that little thing crawling and pulling, I don't know if you even saw it there, but this big, and it's got all the protein. I mean, where does that thing know how to do this? Where is the knowledge coming from? Well, just look at the animal kingdom. Look at the, where does this knowledge come from? That, to think that it's just random, and then where did the information come to create these you have all these little robots in there doing things. Would you ever think that it happened by chance? If you went to Mars and you saw a computer, would you say, oh, billions of years and trillions of years of evolution, and oh, there's a computer, and there's all this information inside? It could be. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. Not to me, to scientists. To scientists. There's many great, phenomenal quotes, by leading scientists. Go.
So I think on top of that, Rabbi Miller talks about it. He says the main point of it is that when you look at these things, the fact that it's not random. It's not that it's just not random. It's that you look at something, and there's no reason for that thing to be that way unless it has a specific purpose. So you look at different things in the world, and you see that this item, thing's purpose is to accomplish so and so. Right? So let's say, he loves to talk about it, Rabbi Miller, he loves talking about fruit, right? So what's the why is fruit colorful? Right? Why isn't it just bland, or why isn't it food just regular, doesn't have any taste? Because it wants to be eaten. Fruit all of a sudden decided, or randomly it decided it wanted to be eaten, and boom, it got its own taste? No. But because it has a purpose, that its purpose is to be eaten, so that's what it grew into. And for the fact that it has a purpose shows that it's not random. So the whole, if something has an identity that it needs to get something done, that shows that it has a purpose and it's not random. And that once you say that it's not random, then you understand that it must have been put in place, that purpose, by something besides for itself.
The only other theory to creationism is evolution that we have out there. And I don't know, it's quite incredible that I read that Darwin himself refers to the creator in The Origin of the Species. He uses the word the creator. It was only the neo-Darwinists that for any reason, whatever, didn't want to. There are so many holes. Listen, there's two portions to evolution. There's natural selection and there's random mutation. Natural selection, obviously, okay? Giraffes with longer necks are going to survive and give the they can, we all understand that you're going to adapt to your environment and you're going to change. This idea of random mutation, statistically, and as we learn more, Darwin did not know DNA. He did not know that within, how big? Anybody have a clue how many times you have to divide a piece of sand to get to? Very nice. Good. See, you're listening to me sometimes. 1 million times. Now, you gather that? Wait. A DNA, a strand of DNA. 1 million times. Anybody have a clue how much information is in that? If we had to write down. Now, let me just tell you what's in the DNA. DNA, what's in the DNA, it's basically, you buy a Lego set or a game, and they give you sheets, right? How to put the game together, right? Because you wouldn't know how to do it, or you go to IKEA, you wouldn't got all these parts. You wouldn't know how to do it, right? So what's in DNA? On what? How to make a human being. How to make a human being. How to make skin cells, eye cells, hair cells, heart, beat, rep, pulse, all those little machines that we saw within the cell. It's a little manual. Anybody want to take a guess how much printed, if you were to print that information, how much printed information there is in
And
there?
what do you know?
And yes?
The billion pages.
Okay, so listen to this. And I did the math because it tells you megabytes. I don't know anything about megabytes. So I did the math. I said how many, and I looked at how many words are in a book, and I looked at how many, I figured it all out. What the average library, how many books are in an average library, you would need 10,000 libraries filled with books to have all the information necessary on how to build a human being. In 1 millionth of a
Great.
grain of sand. I mean, evolution, chance, whatever. There's a lot of smart people that believe that. Personally, I believe, I don't know how many people know smart people in their lives that get some things wrong. A lot of smart people, you can be smart in 10 different ways, but not smart in relationships. You get angry, you're not appreciative, but you're a genius, you're a Harvard graduate. You do this, that. There's different kinds of smartness. There are very intellectual people that believe in a random world. I don't think they're very smart in that particular realm of what they believe. There's something called cognitive dissonance. If people want to believe that they're living in a random world, and why do you want to believe that you're living in a random world? Because you think that if you don't, I'm holding to somebody, I got to do this, I got to do that. They should only know that those things that they have to do are amazing things to do. They're great things to do. They're not a burden. Judaism shouldn't be a burden. It should be something we love. We should love to go to shul, and if you don't, you're doing something wrong. We should love to pray. We should love to connect to Hashem, and if not, He's not a punishing God. We live in a world where, and it's a great quote, it's not, God is not a punishing God. It's just He set up the world in a certain way. You said it. How could you have good? Can anybody explain to me how could you have good if there was no evil? How could you have good? If you didn't have to choose.
Well, because you can't compare to anything.
Not only that, which is one thing, correct. Yeah, we take things for granted. Sunny day, every day, every day, every day. We don't know until it's cloudy. Very interesting that God made it cloudy when it rains. What are we supposed to learn there? Obviously, there's a silver lining, whatever it may be. But if we didn't have a choice, then how can we do good? You only can do, you have 10 switches, they're all something to do good. But what about if this one switch gives you $1 million, but if there's no evil, there's no good. So it's the same way in a metaphysical world. And this book was written by Rabbi Kamenetsky's son. I highly recommend it. Afterlife, it talks about a lot of interesting things. So he says, thanks to modern science, and specifically Newton's third law of motion, the world recognizes that every action causes an equal and opposite reaction. Although this is the law of the physical world, it is fascinating to note that it helps explain the spiritual world as well. God created His world so that each action, spoken word, thought, and emotion has a corresponding reaction in the spiritual world. The spiritual world responds to man's input and causes corresponding changes in the physical world. Even such things as weather, health, and circumstances are influenced by our actions. Anybody know what the butterfly effect is? Butterfly effect? Yeah. What?
If you change one thing, you take one step, it could destroy the world.
And so there was a famous physicist who was doing meteorological calculations. He was a mathematician.
It's basically saying that anything you could do could influence something else.
Right. But he proved it scientifically because his calculations were off by 0.00001, and there was a completely different meteorological reaction. So the point is, this is quite incredible. The world takes care of itself, and it pretty much goes back to what we're talking about today in suffering, and what do we live in a just world? So I like to tell my kids, drop this 1,000 times, it's going to fall.
So right now, with that butterfly effect, if one person takes a wrong step,
And that's the way we're supposed to live our lives, okay? Right? When we say in Judaism, we should live like the world was created just for us. I don't know exactly what that means. There's probably some very deep meanings there. But one of the things is we should live our life as though the world is 50-50. And you want to know something? It is. It's not. We all are a part, not just a little part. We're all a part just the way a wire in a jet fighter, if you pull it out, there's 1 million wires, and you pull out one, the whole plane's not going to work.
so it wasn't
That's-
being held together by something
Right. So we all we have to take our lives that seriously. You know, we have a job to do, every one of us, to educate ourselves, to live life correctly, to work on our challenges. And it's very easy to determine what our challenge is. If people want to say, well, what's my tikkun? What's my test? Look at the thing. I have to look at the thing in my life that is most challenging. I get angry a lot. Okay, I get quick. I get impatient. That's a challenge. That's my tikkun. Okay.
I never understood until now. I heard a lot of times that they said that one of the biggest miracles in the world is that if you do something wrong, God doesn't punish you on the spot. That it gives you a chance to do Tish'a BeAb later on in time. Why? So now it makes sense, because if you're saying with the butterfly effect, then theoretically, if you take one step the wrong way, that's it. The whole world is destroyed, right? So now, if it's not being held together by something else, then that means that the world is going to be destroyed. So since now, because we took one step out, God is holding together the whole world, just not to punish you right now, so that eventually, in a certain amount of time, hopefully you make Tish'a BeAb. And that's why that's why they say it's such a big miracle that God doesn't punish you on the spot, because really, theoretically, the world should be destroyed.
Calm is going to get you.
Listen, okay.
I want to make a couple of points. Talk about God. We believe the God is invisible, and it's not a coincidence that that's the way it's set up. We don't have a chance to see Him, but our job is to manifest Him in the world. So I disagree with you to a certain extent, where I feel the world is very unjust. Like, in other words, if you look at the animal kingdom, the large lion eats the might is right in the animal kingdom, and the big eats the small, and that's the way it goes. But our job as Jews is to bring this invisible God into the world. And how do we do that? We do something that's against our interest, because really the world works with doing what's best for me. That's how you survive. If you were in the animal kingdom, you have to strip everything down, and you have to survive. In order to survive, you have to take selfish actions. That's the physical world. But when we do something that's altruistic, and we do something that goes against our own benefit, that's like, if somebody looks at that and they say that doesn't make sense. Why would you do something that's not in your interest? Why would you do something that is in somebody else's interest? And that's when we bring God into the world, because now you can see God.
That's amazing.
Through the fact that you're doing something that doesn't really benefit.
Can I add something
you're
to that?
manifesting God in the world.
Can I add something to that? There's a book called Life is a Test. And she goes, John Rice. She goes into the word nisayon, a test, and she says, why is the root of the word nisayon nes, miracle? What's the miracle in a test? So she says, okay, when God did a miracle, let's talk about the nature miracle. What did he do? He went against nature, right? So now, when we are faced with something, the lion should eat the little lion. Right. But if the human being says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to let you eat, what are we doing? We're going against our nature. Okay? And that is a miracle, and that is the root, why the root of the word nisayon is in the root nest. We bring God into the world 100%.
When now the invisible becomes visible. So that's our job as people.
Okay.
I want in God in the world.
I wanted to, and I don't want to, we're saying a lot of incredible things, but I do want to try to get to what we were trying to talk about here, justice. Now, we got to look at this world 100% not just when what we see, good people suffering, but our sages, okay, the Chazon Ish was an incredible, he lived around, I think around the 1900s. He lived in Eastern Europe. He was Gadol Hador. He moved to Yerushalayim. He was a real intellectual from a secular point of view, as well as a Judaic point of view, Torah scholar. And he said that if one knows the truth, there's not 1 second of sadness in this world. What does he mean? We're supposed to, as Jews, about Hashem we're supposed to. Where is this idea? Where is this idea coming from? And the point is that God, and I showed you the cell because, think about science. Well, you know what? There is absolutely no way that God, Robert, finish the sentence, dropped the ball when it came to justice. Okay? There is no way. Now, there's a few things that are confusing. Okay, so how does the, earthquakes, mass destructions, things like this. Now, we have to understand, what I've learned. What?
We don't have to question that.
What do you mean I question that?
You're not, I don't think you're supposed to.
Okay, as Michael said, we're not here to point, and as my wife clearly points out, nobody can ever say, oh, he got punished because of this, he got punished because, or I'm suffering because. There are many things suffering can be. Okay, suffering can be tikkun. We've talked about it. You do something bad happens. Guys, all the suffering in the world is all a function of all the things from Adam on, all the problems that we've had. It is all a result of human beings going off the track. We're here to fix it. We're here to tikkun. Now there are a lot of elements to this picture, and I'm just going to go. Since I wrote it down, let me just continue on. We talked about no good deed gets unrewarded, no bad deed goes unpunished. Many come into this world with the tikkun. Judaism has as its core, one of its principles, reincarnation. There's a lot, within our oral tradition that talks about it. If you have trouble with that concept, it'll take the world to come and just flip it around. You think we only have one shot? You think you only have one shot? God put you here in your soul. That's it. You come to Hashem. Oh, I'm sorry. No, another chance. There is another chance. We do. We come around. Souls come around. And we're reincarnated. And there is a tikkun for Olam Haba. So when you factor that into the equation, that is 100% part of the equation in terms of,
It's not mercy, that's not justice.
What? What do you mean?
Okay,
what? Yeah, it's 100% mercy.
So then how is that a justice?
Okay, so you're taking the literal definition of the word justice. That God, there's rachamim.
Sorry, I think
yeah, no problem. Yeah, no, God is not 100% just because he's more than just. He doesn't give us back exactly what we deserve. If my child does X, Y, Z and he deserves, no. But if he shows remorse and he learned the lesson, okay, no, God is not just.
You can't be merciful and just.
Okay, so when I'm talking about justice, he can't be. Why not? Why can't he be merciful?
Because if he's just, then the person should be punished at this point. And they're mutually exclusive. You can't be merciful and just at the same time.
Well, what if God created the justice system to be whatever that justice system is? What if he deals with everybody in the same way? What if everybody who does sin 10 gets, or does mitzvah 10 gets reward 10? And everybody who, doesn't mean that, in other words, he plays with everybody the same. Everybody, the rules are pretty much the same for everybody. He does it, whatever mercy he has for everybody. So yes, no, this is a strict deen world? No. God made the world with deen originally, right? And he couldn't survive. And then he brought in rachamim. So to your point, yes, God is very merciful. And that's one of the reasons why
It's not just.
No, he's just because he treats him the same way as he treats him. He's fair to everybody. So if I gave everybody off the test, or gave everybody 10 more points on the thing, that's not fair. Why are you giving everybody 10 more points? If I'm giving it to everybody, then it's fair.
Mercy isn't suspending justice, it's just finding a better way to deal with it.
Treats with everybody the same way. So, and we'll talk about it more after, because I don't, there's 12 minutes, I just want to try to wrap up. Okay, so there is this idea of Judaism, there's a lot to learn, and if you can't grasp that topic, not only, okay, so there is reincarnation. We get judged as individuals, and we get judged as a nation. We talked about, humanity being one. We are one. This is the way, it's a very hard concept, and I brought this up analogy before. If you're on a team, and you got a lousy quarterback, you're going to lose the game. But that doesn't mean you didn't get 200 yards running, and you didn't feel good about the running game. And you got a trophy for getting the most yards for the whole thing. We do get judged as a nation, and we get judged individually. So So some of the tikkun that we see in the world is some of these natural calamities and such. Is very complicated. God forbid I should be trying to explain how things work. It's certainly not for me to say, and as Michael said, it's not for any of us to try and figure it out. But if we understand these moving parts, we could try, I believe, to make sense out of some of the suffering in the world. So really, I just want to end with, with one summation in terms of what suffering could be. Sometimes we talked about suffering as punishment, tikkun. I think we all understand that concept. But suffering can also be something else. Suffering can be a blessing in.
To show us the good.
Okay, as there is good, like we spoke about before, good and evil, but okay. Here we go. Okay. The truth is that the journey of life, this is Rabbi Tatz, is always made against resistance. Life is work, and work is always performed against resistance. When you strain against the resistance of ordeals and difficulties and move ahead, when you perceive that you are winning the battle and moving, building your deepest essence experiences happiness even while your body is aching. And that happiness is generated by the experience of moving ahead against resistance. Building when the building is difficult. Things that come easy give only a superficial happiness. If no work is invested, there can be very little satisfaction. I think we all see that in life. We all understand that the truth. So in a way that you could look at life's ordeals and life's tests, depending upon how we react to them, are we going to let them bowl us over? Are we going to let them, oh my God, what do I got to do with this? Or what, and I do that a lot. But if we could stand up and say, you know what? God, and this whole other cliche that we have out there, God doesn't test anybody with anything they can't win. Well, that's true. That's true. So some people look at huge tests and say, wow, God has given me this amazing opportunity. Because you know what? He's also given me the strength to overcome this. And can I look at this test and can I turn it into bringing Hashem into this world and having the faith that he's going to carry me through this thing? And whatever it may be, just as this guy, Aaron Margalit, took a life of pain and misery. We see it all the time. We see it in this guy, DJ Cohen. How did he find the strength to go and he's fighting cancer and he's on Instagram with his chemotherapy? And where did that strength come from? So suffering, can be tikkun. Suffering can be a challenge, where we can grow from. And, lastly, well, that's, really, I guess, pretty much it. And so I guess I'll just end it up with saying, yeah, go ahead.
No,
Yeah, if anybody wants to add anything or have any problem with anything.
There's the
Or,
engagement ring, then the wedding ring, then the suffering.
that's what about now? Does that work? No, but truthfully, okay, so here's how I want to end. Here's how I want to end, if nobody has nothing to
I
add.
have a room full of men here. You gotta turn it around a little bit.
Okay, here's how I want,
It's too serious in here.
here's how I want to end.
Yeah, it's way too serious.
I love it.
Way too serious. So here, well, life is serious, Robert.
I
You
get
gotta
it.
laugh,
It's serious.
you gotta laugh.
You gotta laugh.
Oh, okay, fine. So, Josh, one second. I just want to end it in one thing. If it's a lot of work to get to that point, it's a lot of work to get to the point where we can see negative things in our life as positive things. Really. And to have the faith that God is with us and going to pull us through. And, again, if we can move the cliches from cliches to really understanding and seeing it as a reality, well, that's a phenomenal way of living. I think it's a great way to live life. And, only if it's real. If it's just this fantasy idea, oh, God's going to take care of me, and it's all going to work out. Da, da, da. If it's cliches, it doesn't work. But if it's really based in a solid rock foundation and you can feel it, then that's coming on our life story. Louis, what do you got to say? You were out there.
Hazak Baruch.
I think I heard from David Cash one time, and he was telling me people overestimate what they could do in a week or in a day. They underestimate what they could do in a lifetime. So it's not a game of all of a sudden I'm gonna be the greatest person in the entire world tomorrow. I probably won't be. But maybe in 50 years I might be. You know, so it's not about specifically today and tomorrow. But like, you have to understand that you do one thing, and then you do another thing, and over 60 years, maybe you'll get somewhere.
That's right. You'll be amazed where you end up. Thanks, guys.
Hazak Baruch.